right, Bob, Mariners back in the win column, and guess what? They're back to 500. How do you feel about just kind of the seesaw that they've been doing around that mark in the so far this year?
It's a weird phenomenon because I actually double-checked with you on that tweet. I tweeted out something the other day, at Bob Stelton on Twitter, by the way. But somebody else had tweeted out, the Mariners after 2 games, 1-1. After 4 games, 2-2. After 8 games, 4-4. And they went down to 30. After 60 games, they were 30-30. I mean, it's who they are, man. They are a mediocre team at best with a really good rotation and a good bullpen. I mean, and everybody's taking turns within the bullpen and the rotation of having a bad night out there. But the only reason you're 500 or anywhere near it is because of your pitching. And your offense is below mediocre. So, you know, they went into this Twin Series. You want them to take 3 or 4. They split it, of course, because that's who they are. They are a mediocre team, and the offense a little less than that.
All right, well, let's go to the offense, because the offense just took a hit today that we learned about. Jared Kelenic broke his foot kicking a water cooler last night after striking out. What do you think of the situation and obviously his handling of it? He was really emotional talking to media members today.
Yeah, you know what's funny is, it's not funny, but what I find interesting is he's been very polarizing since he's been up here, less so this year because he's produced. But, you know, people are not sure if he's a good guy, bad guy, he's got an attitude, what have you. I saw so much positive reaction to that video. I feel like this wins over a ton of people that didn't hold him in very high regard, whether they thought he was spoiled or arrogant or a punk or whatever their problem was with him. I actually didn't see very many negative comments at all to that video where he's crying. He's breaking down crying. I let myself down, I let the team down, and you see how much it means to him. So I guess if you're looking for a silver lining to it, is that I think he gets a lot of people over on his side because you see right there it's genuine and how much this team and how much this game means to him. So that's a positive. His absence is an absolute negative. He's a plus outfielder. He was in the midst of a 7-game hitting streak. He looked like he was starting to find it again. And on this offense, hitting .250, you're a stud. And he was one of the better offensive players they've had in July. And he seemed like, again, 7-game hitting streak. He looked like he was just starting to find that comfort up at the plate. So it's a brutal loss with an offense like this. We'll see what happens. I can't expect anything out of Cade Marlowe. I don't expect him to come up and be a superstar. This is where Pollock's going to have to make Jerry look like he knew what he was doing when he picked him up, because everybody was selling, this guy's going to mash lefties and he's done this and that in his career. He hasn't done little to nothing since he's been here. Now's his chance.
All right, let's talk deadline. Deadline's 12 days away. They have 10 games between now and the deadline. What needs to happen for the Mariners to actually go out and be buyers?
You got to win 7 of 10. You got to give this organization, you got to give the management, the front office, a reason to believe we should invest right now. Anything short of that, I think, especially if you're going to be hanging behind 4 or 5 teams and they keep going back and forth in the wild card standings, and you're what, 8 or 9 games back in the division. So you're looking at the wild card and it vacillates between 4.5 and 5.5 back, but you've got 4 teams and 5 teams in front of you. So you get through this final 10 games before the trade deadline. If you're still 5-5, any move you make has got to be about next year. It doesn't preclude them from making a move, but it's not about this year. In my opinion, it's not about, hey, we're a playoff team, let's supplement this team, because at that point, you are what your record says you are. You're a middling team.
Well, going off of that, who on this MLB roster, the current roster that we have right now, who on the team are you okay with them potentially trading off?
Kind of anybody except for Kirby and Julio. I mean, there are people that I don't want. I don't want Logan Gilbert to go. But there are people that I could come to terms with if you got the right return. Who that is, I don't know. But I could be talked into Logan. It would be a lot of talking because he's about as close to untouchable as Kirby and Julio. He'd be the next one for me. As far as position players, I can't think of anybody where I'd go, why would you possibly trade that guy? You know, it's always about the return. It's always about what you're getting back in exchange. But in terms of just saying, I can't believe you traded this guy, it's Julio and it's Kirby, in my opinion, with a very close Logan Gilbert. I mean, I love Bryce, I love Brian Woo's potential. You know, Luis is locked up. I doubt he'd get traded. Yeah, You love J.P. Crawford, you love all these guys, but are they untradeable? Are they untouchable? No.
All right, last one. ESPN's Buster Olney reported today that the Mets are taking calls about outfielder Mark Canha, one of your favorites from his time with the Oakland A's, and Olney specifically mentioned the Mariners as a possible match because Canha played for the A's for a long time, and the Mariners apparently tried to sign him 2 off seasons ago. Sitting 241, 741 OPS, club option for next year. What is Bob Stelton's take on Mark Canha potentially being traded to the Mariners?
Wow, I think I've called him punchable more than a few times. He's up there with Bregman in terms of the guy you just see him and just go, I guess if he's on your team, you're pulling for him. I don't know, 241, whatever you said, he'd blend right in. He's not lighting it up. He's a guy who's a nuisance up there. He gets plunked a lot. I don't know if it's intentional. I choose to believe it is because he's got that look. But listen, if you give up, if you're giving up some prospects, B-level prospects or something to try him out, so to speak, for a couple of months and see if he's worthy of picking up that option. Anybody who makes the team better, I'm on board. Some would be tougher sells than others. I'd have to come to terms with this, but if he can come in here and help and they give up a reasonable return to the Mets, then I'm on board.